stand for fantasy football franchise. Talking about that guy, Hoogie Tyler every week. Heavy analytics, competition real steep. Whoa, that's sweet. Oh, in this belief. Nick so sick, man, bringing ships the whole fleet. Goats, not sheep. Follow every tweet. Don't sleep, always finding sleepers on the street, boy. F3, winning every single league. Money back guaranteed, but it's free. Welcome to the franchise. Welcome to the franchise. Let's go.
All right, welcome back to the F3 pod, everybody. My name is Sean. I'm joined with my co-host Joey. How you doing today, Joey?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Doing all right.
Probably better than Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew currently has a lot of children at his house, and he's babysitting, so he will not be joining us today, which could be good. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
You don't have to say his Twitter handle.
That's nice. That's really the best part of this. So yeah, you can find me at Lanny1925 on Twitter, and you can find Joey at Joey the Tooth IDP. We're going to be joined today by Jordan McNamara later in the show. So he's got a new book coming out that he wants to talk about. But until then, we kind of just want to go over some of the news, the injuries, some preseason happenings, and just kind of talk about how that affects the dynasty football landscape. So, Joe, you got something specific you want to talk about first?
Let's see. I'd like to talk about, let's start with Antonio. Let's start with Antonio Brown.
All right, just kick it off with a banger.
Let's just go. He left practice today, just walked off the field.
Yeah,
he tried the helmet, couldn't do it.
Yeah, and he's like, nah, not interested. See you later. Just left. It's like,
seriously?
Man, it's like so close. Like just when you think it's like, okay, he's pulled himself together, he's gonna just deal with it. It's like, nope, then this happens again. So
dude, this is worse than the Le'Veon Bell situation from last year. Like with Bell, you knew he wasn't playing. You're like, all right, he might come back, but he's not gonna say, if you give me a helmet, I'm gonna come back. Like he's just lost his mind.
Well, and Bell at least had like a good reason where it was like,
right.
Like you can decide what side of that you want to fall on, but I'm always on the side of the player, you know?
Right. I mean, look what happened with Earl Thomas in Seattle. He was going through the same thing and decided to play and then broke his arm.
Yep. And he's lost money over it. So, and it's different for running backs too, where like running backs are even shorter shelf life, and he's at 27 right now. So, you know, he's got maybe a couple years left of like good money.
And some heavy usage at 27. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I was fine with what Bell did. This is stupid. I drafted him in a lot of startups. I might have drafted him in our last startup.
Oh man.
Because he like falls to the third, fourth round because all this drama is going on. But it's like, man, this is so stupid. There's no way this keeps going, right? Like at some point, it's just too dumb to keep going. It's like, no, it's just gonna keep going.
Right.
So, I don't know what to do with Antonio Brown at this point because you can't sell him. Like,
nobody
obviously
you'll get nothing for him.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if you can buy him because nobody wants to sell him for the reasonable price at this point. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's just like you're stuck with him right now, and you got to just hope he decides to put on a helmet.
Oh God, and a helmet. It's all over a helmet.
I know, it's so dumb.
Come on.
So at least you avoided all the AB shares.
I did. Thank you.
Oh, this was pretty savage. Okay, I don't know if you saw this. So, you know, on Sleeperbot, all the mascots that they rolled out.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Juju made one.
Yeah. Did you see
the clown?
Yeah.
It's named AB.
Yeah, mascot named AB, and it's just a clown.
Like a psychotic clown.
Yeah, absolutely love it. That was Juju's.
Yeah, because he's like a big Sleeperbot guy now.
Yeah, he's running that celebrity tournament.
Yeah, and I think that was one of his. When he joined on, that's when that mascot came about. That mascot was never there before.
That's so good.
So there's got to be some correlation.
Yeah, I saw it pop up and I just lost it. It's like, oh man.
I was like, good for you, Juju.
Yeah, get him.
Yep. Dude demands a trade and then he goes insane.
So, Josh Gordon Another.
All right.
This is the flip side of it. We're
Okay.
going with banger number 2 here.
Yeah.
Josh Gordon is back, and I was at work when somebody came and broke the news to me, and I legitimately cheered. I was like, "Let's go! Come on!" Everyone's like, "What are you so excited about?" I'm like, Josh is back.
Just get him going.
I know. Now what needs to happen is they need to change their marijuana policy before he gets
Quickly.
to screw it up.
Real
Yeah, like
quick.
change it
Oh, my
now.
Lord.
Like there should be a petition to remove the marijuana policy right now. So I don't know. I have no idea whether he's. You would think so, but it's clearly a problem. And I think last time it wasn't weed; it was something else. Like
Yeah.
they never really said what it was, but I was told it was not weed.
Yeah. And
So-
the last time, too, he took himself out, didn't he? Or was it
Yeah.
substance abuse?
I think he took
I think
himself
he sat out.
but he like didn't take the drug test. I think is what it was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember exact. It's been a minute since I've done the Josh Gordon
Yeah.
thing, but yeah, I have him in a lot of places too. I just love these.
I mean, I'm cheering for him.
I am too. Everyone loves Josh Gordon.
I don't know, because he was great. He came out of nowhere when he had that huge season. Out of nowhere, and next thing you know, he's leading the league in receiving yards, and you're like,
Nice.
glad I
So-
picked him up off of waivers.
What is this? Who does this hurt? Who does this help? Let's assume for now he's totally clean. He's not smoking weed. He's not doing anything. No drugs. No off the field issues. He's going to play for the rest of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Who does this hurt most?
Jacoby Myers,
Yeah,
which
That's
sucks because I
I
love the
know.
guy,
I
and
know.
he's been balling out.
Jacoby Myers though. I think they're more inclined to keep / get on the field probably than Demaryius Thomas. I don't know.
I think to start with, when Thomas comes back, it's going to be Thomas will be ahead of him in the depth chart, but I don't think it's going to last.
I don't trust Thomas coming
I don't
back
either.
with that injury.
I don't either. But it sucks because Myers will probably be like 5th or 6th in the depth chart going in.
Yeah,
Because he's going to have to overtake Dorsey. He's going to have to overtake Demaryius Thomas. I think he's already overtaken Maurice Harris.
definitely.
Yeah.
There's no room in the slot though is the problem
I
because
know.
Edelman plays there. So
His saving grace is Brady likes him.
yeah, I mean, and that's great, but you got to be on the field for that to matter. So
I know.
I think, and they're not like, while the Patriots aren't as like rigid about draft capital as a lot of other teams, like I
Right.
still think Harry will play.
Yeah.
So you're looking at Josh Gordon, Edelman, Harry probably as your 3 receivers.
hmm
And then, I mean, I guess if you go 4 wide receiver sets, there's a shot for Myers to make it.
I think it'd start with Dorsett though.
You think so?
He proved he played decent in the playoffs. He scored a couple touchdowns. But-
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends how they want to line him up. I think
Yeah.
Myers might be the better slot option.
Agreed.
So if you're like running 4 wide receiver sets, you're gonna have another guy in the slot. So
True.
I don't know. I think Thomas is the odd man out here, though.
I'm
Like I just,
hoping so.
yeah, I am too.
Really
He's because like if he came in and had any sort of work, all it is taking away from real dynasty assets.
Right, exactly.
It's like as much as I'm not a N'Keal Harry fan, like I don't know, there's value to be had there, and if
Right.
Grace Thomas takes away any of his snaps, then it's just like hurting everybody.
Oh yeah. Like Thomas coming back and Josh Gordon even coming back, that's just making these rookies ADP just
Yep.
drop and drop.
It's funny too, because like before the draft, Myers was free.
Yep.
After the draft, he was like he was starting to raise up a little bit. Then you get basically the huge spike where he's going, late second,
Yeah.
third round, and now it's just back to like
Yep. Now everybody's like, what the fuck?
yeah, it's like he's down to he's down to back late third, fourth,
Yeah.
somewhere in there. So
I mean, he's getting drafted now still, but
I just drafted him. So I mean,
I drafted him too in our 53-man league.
yeah, I know you beat me to it on that. You drafted him before the Josh Gordon news, though.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So
Well, because I had heard even previous to his first preseason game that him and Brady, like Brady was saying he loved him. He had like 14 catches on 18 targets or something in practice, and it was like, Brady likes him. Let's do
Into
it.
yeah,
I'll take it.
that's and honestly, like I think they're gonna be they're not going to be super pass heavy over there. So you're probably
No.
not going to see a ton of relevance out of all these receivers, or at least like they'll be relevant, but they won't be where you need them to be. You know? Like I think Josh Gordon is probably going to be overdrafted at this point because, you know, if you get 3 more years of Brady and just like kind of leaning on the run a little bit more and Brady managing the game and just like being efficient, that's not great for fantasy. And Josh Gordon's 30 by then. So
Right.
I think
But at that point too, if you have shares in both Harry and Myers, after those 3 years, you might be okay.
Yeah, those guys definitely.
Yeah.
I think you honestly, like, you're buying Myers toward the end of this year, basically, when he hasn't done a whole lot. It's kind of hope. So, all right, who do you want to talk about now?
Let's see. What about Emmanuel Sanders coming back? At 32, coming off an Achilles, and he didn't look bad. I know, but
he's another one that's just like, man, I just need Deshaun Hamilton in the game, and
I know.
Instead we got Emmanuel Sanders. So
he took it 19-yard end around last night or the Monday night. Yeah, last night.
Yeah,
and he didn't look like he lost too much. I know it sucks dynasty wise because he's 32 coming off an Achilles.
Yeah, I mean, good for him. Like, definitely good for him coming back. But like, he's not a really like he might be like a stopgap player on your dynasty teams. I already traded my shares before the injury, so I lucked out there. Basically, as soon as they drafted Sutton and Hamilton, it was like, okay, these are the replacements for Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas. So now I just need Emmanuel Sanders to go away.
Yeah, with him coming back, if he is healthy, who does that hurt the most, you think?
Deshaun Hamilton.
Yeah.
I mean, Hamilton will still see the field a good amount, but like you're adding another able-bodied receiver to the mix on a team that doesn't necessarily have the strongest passing attack.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. All my Deshaun shares took a bit of a hit with Sanders playing well. So, I don't know. Do you have Sanders anywhere?
I do. I have him in one dynasty league, but that's it. And I think it's in our IDP guys one, LA.
Okay.
Oh, you're not in that one.
I'm not in that one, but I know.
I drafted him as my wide receiver 3 just because there was nobody else. Like wide receivers went
what
quick.
Happened?
It went so quick, and I was like, all right, so I just waited. There was like towards that part of the draft, there was just value everywhere else. I was like, whatever. I've already missed out on anybody who I see is legit wide receiver 3, so I waited out. I got Emmanuel Sanders late and ended up grabbing guys like Zay Jones and a couple other dudes, which I turned Zay Jones and Geno Atkins into Robbie Anderson.
Oh God, I like Zay Jones actually.
I'm all right with Zay Jones.
He's definitely underperformed so far, but like I really liked his tape in college. I think he's been grossly misused in the NFL.
He was fantastic in college.
The whole thing was like coming into the league. The concern was that he didn't have the long speed to be successful, you know, and he played a lot of underneath. He was a really good route runner in the short to intermediate range. And then all of a sudden he runs a good 40 and they're like, all right, let's turn him into a deep threat. It's like, no. Right. Like, yeah, he ran a nice 40, but like he does all of these other things so well. Why not use him in that aspect of the game? And it's do
you think they'll do it a little more this year, adding John Brown on the outside?
That's the hope. Hopefully adding John Brown kind of puts him into more of the short to intermediate role that he can work on.
Yeah.
Cole Beasley getting added to the mix is a little weird. He obviously plays in the slot, but that kind of soaks up the same area of targets that I'd like to see Zay Jones in. But I don't know if you can get him working in the intermediate game. I think like there's definitely like wide receiver 2 potential. I don't think that's likely, but it's possible.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone who drafted him in rookie drafts a couple of years ago is going to be very happy with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're going to throw the ball more with Josh Allen. They're going to be playing from behind.
Yeah, and he hasn't looked terrible in preseason. He looks a lot more comfortable in the pocket.
Yeah.
He's had a couple of nice balls.
Yeah. And I think, like, LaShawn McCoy is not going to get it done on the ground.
Right.
Like, I don't expect that.
Singletary might.
We'll see what happens there.
Give it to Frank Gore. Give it to my man.
Oh, God. Frank Gore just eternally messing up backfield
Mm-hmm.
situations.
Yep, he
So,
stabbed me in the heart last year. Kenyon Drake was like, I'm like, I'm gonna choose this guy as my breakout, man. He's only got to beat out Gore, who's what, 35,
yep,
and he didn't. And I was like,
Frank Gore, the potential slayer.
Frank, you stabbed me in the heart.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think that backfield's going to get it done. So then, like, they're going to be playing from behind probably. They're going to have to be slinging the ball around, and like Zay Jones is going to be on the field as their wide receiver too. So
Yeah.
there's nobody else. So it's going to be John Brown, Zay Jones, and then you got Cole Beasley in the slot. And Cole Beasley, I think, is like dirt cheap right now, and
Oh
like
yeah.
that's a sneaky good play.
Mm-hmm.
So
Especially
him,
in PPR. I mean, everything's PPR now, so.
yeah, I mean, like, I think, like, if he can catch 5 passes for 50 yards, it's like, yep, quick 10 points.
Thanks.
Yep. So, I don't know. That's a good bye week fill in, and I think there's potential for a lot more volume than what people are expecting there. So,
Yep.
let's see. How about,
Listen, I want to talk about my guy Robbie Anderson.
all right, let's talk Robbie Anderson.
Listen, you know what? And even when we had that mock draft, I wasn't huge on him then. That was kind of like a panic pick for me.
Yeah.
And now, since the preseason's been going on and everything, I've heard all good things about him. He's been working on his route running with coach. Him and Sam Darnold seem to be on the same page. He's the de facto wide receiver 1 on the team.
I mean,
come on, if Darnold makes a leap, who's it going to go to?
a Nunwa.
Come on.
Or, I don't know, maybe
Come
a
on,
Nunwa. Le'Veon Bell is going to catch 300 passes this
Bill
year.
will catch a lot.
I don't think he's going to be super efficient running the football compared to what we've seen out of him, but he'll
Right.
catch a lot of passes.
I mean,
oh,
come on,
man.
the opportunity's there.
Yeah, I mean, Jamison Crowder.
Crowder will be all right.
I'm serious. Like, Crowder's kind of the Cole Beasley for me, where I like Jamison Crowder at his price more than I think I like Robbie Anderson at his price.
I get that. I definitely get that because you can get Crowder virtually almost undrafted.
Yeah, same range as Cole Beasley.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know.
And I definitely get that.
I kind of
like they're running different routes for Anderson. They're not just freaking deep out and go.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. The smile on your face is just really making me want to hate Robbie Anderson.
I know it is. I know it is. But you know what? I'm gonna peg him right now as my breakout player of the year.
All right.
Just because.
We'll save that one for week 8 when Robbie Anderson has done nothing.
When I'm smashing my face into a table.
Yeah, then we'll bring up that clip right there.
Yeah, I know. I think I just set myself up for these later in the season.
Yeah, just bold takes about crappy players.
Mm-hmm.
Robbie Anderson's fine. I just like
fine.
He's fine. I don't get your love for Robbie Anderson.
I didn't even have it at that draft. I don't know why he went with my wide receiver 3 in that draft, and then all of a sudden I was just like, all right. I started watching some clips and stuff, and then I started reading about preseason. Somehow he kept coming up. And I mean,
it's just of all, like, you pick a lot of really good players to just.
I know.
And you just love Robbie Anderson.
I don't know.
So, I almost took him in a league. And I was like, nah.
And then you're like, fuck Joey.
It's like, nah, not doing that. All right. I want to talk about Hakeem Butler. This is a sad one for me.
Yep.
I love Hakeem Butler. I thought he was grossly underdrafted. He's a bit of a project, but he's super talented. He's big. He's athletic. He runs good routes for his size. He had some drop issues, obviously, but he's a monster after the catch. He did all the things well that you want to see a number 1 receiver do well. He just had to clean a few things up and, get coached up a little bit. And
he's like a perfect fit for that offense.
Yeah, he was. And now he's done for the year, probably. So,
yep.
That, I guess, like, the bright side, he's going to be cheaper if there's a couple of rookie drafts you haven't done. Get him late in startups. I don't know, because, I mean, it's 1 year. Guys come back. So I don't think this is going to be anything that's going to ruin his career. It's just going to be a 1 year setback. So.
I do think it bumps up Keyshawn Johnson, though.
Yeah.
He's been playing really well.
Yep, I got a lot of Keyshawn Johnson shares. Honestly, I have a lot of all of those Cardinals wide receiver shares just because, like, I don't know how they're going to deploy them yet. I have no idea, so I'm just trying to grab as many as I can and
And with that defense, they're probably going to be down.
Yeah, they're probably going to be down, and we know they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. We know they're going to be running a lot of plays. Kyler Murray's looked pretty good, so he definitely, in my opinion, was the best quarterback of that class. That's not really a hot take, but he was the only one that I really liked at all. I am not a Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock fan.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be an exciting offense. It's a bummer that Butler won't be there, but you still got Isabella, you got Keyshawn Johnson, and obviously still have Fitzgerald, and I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out, but there's going to be a lot of targets to go around there.
Yep.
Do you have any idea what's going to happen at tight end over there? Charles Clay.
So they say Charles Clay at the moment is on the top of the depth chart, but he's 30. No.
Yeah.
No. If they were smart, like, all right, you have Ricky Seals-Jones, right? He played in this offense in college. Yeah. It's like he knows the offense. Just put him out there. He's probably the best receiving tight end you have on the team.
They also drafted or signed
Caleb Wilson.
Yeah,
he was Mr. Irrelevant. He was the last pick of the draft.
Yeah,
he fits in well too.
Yeah. Max Williams I always liked. There's always just like he's just been the biggest disappointment. Like I like him as a player, but it's like, man, like
the Ravens did that to two players. Now they got Max Williams and Hayden Hurst. It's like, all right, I draft you high and then
not use you. I mean, Hurst was hurt. But
and then Andrews kind of said, "See you later."
Yeah, that's kind of a messy situation as well.
But,
so real quick, rapid fire. Let's just run through a couple more of these. DK Metcalf, you worried about the knee at all?
Not really.
Yeah, I'm not either. I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah.
They just got to throw the ball more to support a second receiver, basically.
Right.
Kenyon Drake, your boy?
Kenyon Drake, no. He's a late guy for me. I'll draft him as a receiving back.
Yeah, this opens the door for Kalen Ballage.
Yeah, I think he's just going to run with the job.
Yeah, the Kalen Ballage hype is out of control. I'm not going anywhere near where
No, I'm not touching him because he's going way too high.
Yep. Andrew Luck, worried, kind of nagging.
Reminiscent of 16.
Yeah, this is not as serious of an injury, but it is one that can kind of just linger.
Yeah.
I think I only have like one Andrew Luck share, so I don't
have any.
But yeah, that share kind of concerns me. I got Baker Mayfield over there too, so I'm okay. But yeah, if Luck doesn't play, that kind of kills Paris Campbell.
I think the only one that can be productive at that point is Ty, because he's the only one that's played with Brissett, and he played well with Brissett still, but was the only receiving option.
Yeah, and I think that at that point you buy Paris Campbell halfway through the year with Luck up. Just hope somebody's getting impatient and just thinks he's garbage, which I was never a Paris Campbell fan, but I love the landing spot. I have a ton of questions about what he can and can't do on the football field just because he was in such a limited role at Ohio State. You didn't get to see whether he was capable of the things he's going to have to do in the NFL. But like,
I think the coaching staff he landed with will use him perfectly.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of can he do enough things to find a productive role in the NFL? Because his average depth of target was I think it was something like 2 yards.
Yeah,
like that. It was
bubble screens and whatnot.
Screens and drags. It was so I can't tell you anything about this tape because he's not doing anything beyond catching and running. So
right. All right, I got one other thing I really want to talk about before we take a break.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Are you worried about Jimmy Garoppolo? I wasn't after the 5 interception thing, but I watched him last night, and he still has confidence in his ability, but he does not have confidence in his body.
Yeah, so Garoppolo, I always thought people crowned him too early. He was going so early in Dynasty startups last year. It was just stupid high.
Yeah.
I don't understand this hype at all. So I am not I'm not any more concerned than I was before.
Right.
But I am concerned.
I
won't have any Garoppolo
horrendous last night.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to see it because I was dealing with
with Jimmy. You're
yeah,
Jimmy.
yeah, I was dealing with nursing baby rabbits back to health.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, so I missed the Garoppolo
2 out of
show
3 ain't
apparently.
bad.
So yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Jesus. All right, with that, we're gonna take a break and we'll be back with Jordan McNamara. All right, and we are back, and we are joined with by Jordan McNamara, and you can find him on Twitter at McNamara Dynasty. He recently just came out with a book called The Analytics of Dynasty. You can find that at analyticsofdynasty.com/shop, and you can buy that book for $30. And just looking through it, like, he's done a ton of research, and this is basically like your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about building your dynasty team. So how we doing, Jordan?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great having you. I see all the time on Twitter, but I've never actually been able to put a face to the Twitter handle.
I hope my face doesn't let me down. So.
It's beautiful, don't worry.
It's a nice change of pace from staring at Joey all day. So
gosh, thanks.
All right. So in your book, you pretty much hit on basically everything you need to know about dynasty. It's not just like startups, it's not just rookies or vets, it really goes into everything. But I mean, we've only got about 20 minutes here, so we can't, and we want people to buy the book. So I kind of want to just through all your research, what were some of the really big findings that you had, some of the main general outlines you found in terms of just how to construct your roster in a startup draft, because this is kind of the time of year when people are starting to do that, or the rookie drafts. But just startup draft, what are we looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends a little bit on the format. So and we were talking about this a little bit offline, but the book primarily focused on start one quarterbacks for a couple of reasons. I didn't have good enough Superflex historical ADP going back, so I couldn't really look at that in terms of how positions compared. But I was able to sort of in the quarterback position. I came up with some metrics, I guess is the easiest way to say it, that compared positions against each other. So I call it WARP and AWARP. WARP is basically wins over replacement player. And it basically puts on a level playing field all of the different positions. So you were able to look at a lot of the Superflex type of decisions through that lens. And it was sort of a proxy for it that I talk a little bit about in the quarterback section. But primarily my startup discussion really is about, I think a lot about how you should think about it. And I looked a ton at hit rates. So for instance, you'll hear, and one of the things that really drove me to write the book is you'll hear people say, well, player X is a good, 5th round draft pick. Well, what does that really mean? Right? What are you actually looking for? And so I was able to do a lot of that, looking at hit rates, looking at, what's your average starter seasons that you expect for that? How many games do you expect that person to actually be in your lineup? And then one of the things I was able to do was use all of the ADP data, and I got ADP data going back from 2008 to 2017 is what focuses on in the book. And I was able to actually create a conversion chart's the easiest way to put it, between rookie picks and startup picks, and sort of look at, when you're trading these startup picks, what range are you looking at for rookie values, and the same with rookie values when you're trading, a startup, a veteran player for a future rookie pick, sort of what type of valuation do you do? So I did a lot of that type of stuff, and that came to a lot of different conclusions. I mean, I think some of the things that we see in Dynasty, some of the popular strategies, I guess we'll say, especially this year, I mean, it's really running back heavy. And one of the things that I like the easiest way to put this, I guess, would be to say that running backs win people championships. I just kind of question the fact that drafting them early is the place to do that. And, we've seen in recent years, I mean, we've seen guys like Damian Williams and Derrick Henry, and heck, 4 or 5 years ago, we saw Tim Hightower win people championships, basically coming from nowhere down the stretch to win you championships. And I think that sort of bears itself out in the data. And you look at where players hit from and sort of how players hit. I think that going early at running back really precludes you from doing a couple of things. It forces you to take wide receivers later, which is always a bad bet. And it sort of locks you into high risk players early, which I think is a bad bet. So a lot of my team builds based on the book have been wide receiver heavy early and running back heavier late.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually exactly how I draft. I just want nothing to do with the early running backs because of just longevity issues. But so then that brings an interesting question. If you're sitting at the 101 in a startup draft, are you skipping on Barkley, or is that an exception?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
I'm thinking like 1 through 1-4. You got like the Barkley, Zeke, Kamara, and McCaffrey. Do you skip on any of them?
So I would take Barkley 101. I'm a big trade down guy, and I think that a lot of the value you can create and a lot of the way to build sort of systemic advantages over the course of your dynasty team is to exploit the trading market and exploit the inefficiencies. You'll see a lot of these teams and a lot of owners, and you'll watch people trade up for, to take 2 running backs in the top 12 picks, and they mortgage their future to do so. The odds of that actually turning out in year 1 is actually really low. Like the odds of hitting for 2 top 24, for hitting for 2 starter seasons, it's less than half. And to actually hit 2 top 12 seasons is like less than a third. Right. So to do that and to sort of hit on that, it's really hard because the injury rates are high and the bust rates are high on these guys. So I am apt to move down. I mean, Barkley's a clear-cut 101 in terms of running backs. I think Mahomes has a good argument in Superflex. But Christian McCaffrey's right there in terms of, I did some after the book came out, and the book didn't really focus on 2019 per se. It was more of an overall evergreen type of deal. So even if you're getting this late and you don't have a startup draft, you can still, or any rookie drafts, you can still implement all the processes from the book. But after the book got done, I did some appearances, and then I sort of wasn't writing and wasn't making appearances, and I had all this free time that I didn't really know what to do with. And so I went back and started looking, and I sort of created did some regressions and did some math on it. And I think that McCaffrey, based on everything that I found, has just as good of an argument. He has an incredible argument for the 101, and almost any other year would be the 101 outside of Barkley's just godlike ability. So, they're good bets there, but I would tend to want to move down, or, I think, I love DeAndre Hopkins early in a draft because of these things that allows you to do later on in the draft.
Yeah. Hopkins is my primary target in every single draft. It's like, if I'm above the range where Hopkins is going to go, I'm trying to trade back. Cause I don't want one of those early running backs. I want DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to be solid till he's 32 rather than
and
one of
he's
these
still only 27. He's still 27 years old.
Yeah, no doubt. And if you wanted to go Hopkins over, or even Beckham to that extent, one of the things that I was surprised, someone posted recently, and I was just looking at it. It's amazing to me that Sammy Watkins has played more games than Odell Beckham.
Yeah, I saw that too, and it kind of blew my mind.
Yeah. I think that Beckham's got a good argument. I sort of love I love DeAndre Hopkins as a player, and I sort of love what he represents as a player. And just the lock solidness of the position. And, one of the things that I really looked at in the book was people get in love with drafting wide receivers. Mm-hmm. And I do that, right? Like I do that early. And in a year, it's to an extent zero running back, but that's sort of gone out of, Sean Siegel and the guys at RotoViz were big on zero running back for a while, but that sort of has gone away, I guess, to some degree. I think the data suggests to you that that's really a strong way to think about it. And for reasons different, I think, than just a zero RB philosophy that came out. Because if you look, like every time you take a wide receiver outside the top 75 of a draft over a running back, you're just lighting your efficiency on fire. right? Like you're taking a 10 to 15% value hit in terms of productivity, in terms of all of the different metrics that I tracked. You're doing worse at wide receiver than you are at running back. So why do that? And so the flip side of that is I take wide receiver early so I don't have to do that. And one of the things I found in the book that I think is totally contrarian and I think has a lot of value is that people take these wide receivers and roster 8, 10, 12, 14 wide receivers in a dynasty roster with the thought that they have longevity over the running backs and their comparative value. And one of the things I found in the book is outside the top, I'll say 6 rounds and 5 or 6 rounds in a startup draft, that is absolutely not true. Right? That
really interesting.
They do not hold their value. And in terms of just measuring the startup valuation, the startup ADP valuation, they don't hold their value better than running backs do. And running backs outproduce them in terms of starter games, starter weeks, top 24 finishes, WARP, my AWARP stuff. And so you sort of look at that and you think, why do that? And so going wide receiver early allows you to make that efficient decision over and over and over again. And, I'm in a league where it's, I think, a 35-man roster, and you don't have to start. It's like one of these hyper flex type deals where you can start, one running back, one receiver, one tight end. I think it's super flex, but you can start up to 7 flexes. Mm-hmm. And I roster 19 running backs and 5 wide receivers, right? And all my wide receivers my wide receivers are good. Yeah. But I only roster, I think I rostered I maybe have 4 of the top 30 wide receivers in the league. And then Kevin White is a last round flyer. That's it. And then I rostered 19 running backs. So when you do that, you open yourself up to really, really high ranges of outcomes as well.
So that's really interesting that they don't hold their value beyond basically the first 6 rounds. So let's say you're taking over an orphan roster and they have a ton of those later wide receivers, in the, rounds 8 to 15 range, right? What are you selling them for rookie picks? Are you combining them or are you trading them for running backs? What are you trying to do?
In terms of if you have a roster right now that has a lot of those middling wide receivers on it? Yeah. I think there's still value in moving out of them. And you can do that, right? And there's a couple ways to do it. You could do it for straight rookie picks. A guy that I think fits this sort of paradigm is a guy like Anthony Miller, right? And one of the things I really looked at in the book was the historical hit rates on rookies. And interestingly, I put the rookie draft before the startup draft in the book. And the reason I did that was because I think so much of the way that you should think about players is dictated by how you think about rookies. Mm-hmm. Right. And how you sort of look at their hit rates and look at the rates of, hit rates by draft pedigree and positionally. And those things are different at different positions, right? A 3rd round running back and a 3rd round wide receiver are miles apart in terms of what you can expect from them. And so you think about that and sort of keep your decisions through that lens. It gives you a great opportunity to sort of think about players when you're drafting a startup. These are the types of players that I want to select. So I'm much more about how does my decision, whether it's making a trade, whether it's a pick in a startup draft, whether it's a rookie draft pick, whether it's a waiver wire pick, how does that decision fit in the lens of my team build, right? How does that reflect the strategy that I want to make? And so if I own, for instance, Anthony Miller types or Michael Gallup types, or you pick your sort of day 2 wide receiver who is low pedigree, but has, supporters or people talking them up, right? Make that back and do something else. So whether it's, hey, I'll trade him for a running, I'll trade him for a running back and a little bit lesser of a running back and a pick upgrade, something like that. Those decisions, if you keep doing them over and over and over again, and, if you play in a bunch of leagues, you keep doing that, your odds of winning just go up a lot. And you just keep moving the needle towards a more efficient roster build. And it takes time. But if you sort of keep thinking about those team decisions through the most efficient lens, you can really benefit your roster year over year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thought is that, yeah, every once in a while you're going to miss on some of those wide receivers that you really liked that you didn't end up drafting because of the strategy. But like, those are rarer occasions. You're playing the numbers here. You're playing the percentages that, assuming you do enough of these moves and improve incrementally, your team's going to get better over time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And my favorite was like this year's rookie drafts. Like you were getting guys like Hakeem Butler, and I mean, people were falling in love with these day 3 wide receivers. The hit rate on day 3 wide receivers is 5%.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay. And the ones that have hit, what I actually looked at the guys that hit. The guys that have hit weren't guys that were drafts, right? So what that says to me is that the market wasn't on them, right? So the rookies that people were picking in that year weren't the ones that actually were the ones that broke out. Like I think the highest pick of a day 3 wide receiver that hit between 2008 and 2017 was actually like Mike Williams, Syracuse Mike Williams, and he was fell for some off-field reasons or whatever, landed in a good spot in Tampa, and was drafted in like the second round of rookie drafts. But outside of that, it was like Marvin Williams, who was like a 3rd round rookie pick.
Yeah.
Right. So, and Tyreek Hill and Diggs and all of these guys, they weren't right. It wasn't clear that that they were going to be these guys. Caution them is the hit rate's really low. Same thing with day 2. The hit rate's really low. I mean, 22% of day 2 wide receivers hit. Right. That's not a good number. And when you compare that against the running backs, it's about half. Right. So the running backs on day 2 hit, I think it's 47% of the time, 48% of the time for a top 24 season. So, I mean, those things are massively different. So just making more efficient investments in players through those lenses, I think is a great way to modify and improve your process.
Yeah.
So what you're looking at is basically receivers in the first 6 rounds. Then you start taking
Hammering out running backs.
And then rookie drafts, you're basically only taking 1st round receivers, and then you're going all running backs.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, it's a little bit like there's room for day 2 wide receivers, but they are the wide receivers that hit on day 2 are the elite metric prospects. And I'm not talking good metric prospects. I'm talking about elite ones. So we're talking Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Adams was a historically great day 2 metric prospect. But the sphere and like really one of the only targets this year was AJ Brown, right? Like that was the level of, I mean, he was a great metric prospect on day 2. But outside of that, like they miss a lot. And the guys that hit tend to be the guys that are high metric guys that are really good metric, stat guys in college and all of the age-based breakout production and those things. Those are the guys that hit at wide receiver.
So the problem with AJ Brown is he's tied to Mariota. So
yeah.
You just don't really like this class that much at all.
Yeah, I mean, in the last, to give you an idea, in the last 2 years, I selected I'm in 20 leagues, so I selected a total of 11 rookie picks I spent on wide receivers. I think 4 of them were like Traquan Smith last year. I spent 2 on Cortland Sutton, 1 on Christian Kirk, 1 on DJ Moore. And then I spent 1 share apiece on Terry McLaurin, Marquise Brown, and the other person's escaping me, Kelvin Harmon, actually in a really late in the startup draft. So, I mean, I think it's like 80% of the picks have been running backs, right? So I play it really tight and with a very low number of target players at any given time at the receiver position.
So you're really looking forward to the 2020 class then, with all the running backs.
Yeah, and listen, every class is different, right? So I don't mind taking receivers, but they have to be really good, right? So, and they have to have, I mean, Corey Davis to me is like I put a lot of weight, and based on all of my study, I put a lot of weight into high pedigree guys, and guys that are very stable. So Brandon Cooks is a great example of that. Brandon Cooks is like the epitome of what a good dynasty wide receiver is. He's young. He's still in his mid-20s. He is hit for 4 consecutive top 15 finishes. He is tied to a good offense with a good quarterback with a good system. I mean, and he was an elite metric prospect and was a day one wide receiver. Right?
Mhm.
Like he's like the epitome of the type of wide receiver that you do. And people talk that he's like boom bust. That's not true. If you actually look at the starter weeks, I mean, he produces basically 50% of his weeks are top 24 weeks, which through the past, like I've looked at it, it's like top 10 at the position for the past, like, 3 or 4 years, right? I
Mhm.
mean, he is up there with Julio Jones in terms of starter weeks. Like that's the sphere in which he's in. And those top 15 finishes, you can look at a guy like Brandon Cooks. And I looked at a lot of this like warp and AWARP stuff. It really tells you sort of how much a player matters. If you just start a guy like Brandon Cooks, right? Like the down weeks don't matter, and they happen at wide receiver, even to the best of them, right? You just get dud weeks. That's what happens at the receiver position.
Right.
But if you just plug and play him and he produces you a top 20 season, like that has a ton of value
Mhm.
because you're not going to do better playing day 2 guys or playing, backup wide receivers and trying to pick the week to play them. You're just historically not going to do that, where you can do that at running back. Right? Like you can pick the week at running back because any week, for example, Damian Harris is a guy that I really like this year in rookie drafts. So is Alexander Madison. I don't need Alexander Madison or Damian Harris to start 16 games for me. I need him to start a handful, right? Because if they start a handful of games, you are putting yourself in the position to be able to start them those weeks. And if I'm rostering, you look at RotoViz did some studies and you look at the historical injury rate of these running backs, you can project them to miss between like 40 to 50% of them will miss 4+ consecutive games during the season. Right. So these top 24 running backs, so if you take a lot of exposure to the backups, right, the James Conner last year, which is an outlier scenario, no doubt. But James Conner, Malcolm Brown is a guy that I was on. It ended up being the right type of bet. It just ended up he got hurt, and it was C.J. Anderson. But Damian Williams, like these guys that were backups. I mean, Latavius Murray and T.J. Yeldon, right? By the end of the season, they didn't look like great producers, but for 4-game stretches last year had massive valuation.
Mhm.
And you could capture that. Whereas if you look at a guy like, I'll just pick a guy like Kiki QT. When you look at Kiki QT's production last year, he had like 2 or 3 good games, but they were all at low starter rates, right? So what was happening is it was happening while he was on people's benches, and then people would play him and he wouldn't produce. Right. So it was like the worst of all things because he was producing decent, but you weren't capturing it. And then when you tried to capture it, you were getting nothing.
He was
Right.
just
So
tricking you.
yeah. And
Sorry, guys.
where that does not, and that's the volatility of the position. It's really tough to capture it, whereas you can capture it at running back.
Yeah,
And
if they're going to be starting in a good offense, they're going to be producing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so if, any game this year that Sony Michel is hurt, or that, Dalvin Cook is hurt, Harris or Madison is going to be the starter, right? He's probably going to be in my lineup. He's probably going to be a top 18 projection that week.
Mhm.
And those are easy starts. And you can do that at running back where it's almost impossible to do that at wide receiver.
Yeah.
So I have one question. So when you're doing your startups, what's your tight end strategy? Are you a guy that just waits on tight end?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I basically come into my decision making with the idea that I want to be running back heavy.
Mhm.
And so, and by running back heavy, I don't mean early in a draft. I mean in terms of volume, right? Because all of these efficiencies I'm going to capture. So by having a lot of running backs. So what I'll do a lot of times is, depending on the format, if it's assuming it's a start 1 tight end, even if there's some premium scoring, that really doesn't move the needle because it moves the position total in and of itself. So there's not a big that doesn't really change the difference between like tight end 3 and tight end 8, for example. It just moves them, I guess, up in scoring more points, but it doesn't change the valuations in position very much, which is really important to know.
Mhm.
So I like to take guys that have high pedigree at tight end because the round one guys they hit a lot. So I'm a big, like this year, Evan Ingram and Joku were big for me in startups because I project them to have good longevity at the position. I expect to varying degrees them to have good volume. But the difference between like a tight end 6 finish and a tight end 10 finish doesn't really matter. But I know that I can plug that person in and capture, if I start him 16 games, I know about what I'm going to capture out of him. And I know that that's highly stable year over year. And the great part about that is it allows me to be sort of light at the position in terms of backups, right? Because I don't want to spend I don't want to roster 4, 5, 6 tight ends because I want those positions to be other positions.
Right.
So I'm more apt to do that. I used to say get inside the line, which was like the top 8 tight ends basically this year. I wanted to be inside that line. And if I wasn't, I was sort of going the other way to do it is to basically target. There's basically 2 targets outside of the top like 8 this year in terms of types. And this is consistent year over year. They're beaten down veterans. Okay. Or they're elite draft pedigree guys that are for some reason depressed in price. So Eric Ebron's a good example of that last year. Hayden Hurst is a good example of it this year. Those high pedigree guys, even if it takes some time, they tend to hit. So those are good guys. Or just take the Jordan Reed, Greg Olson, Delaney Walker types. And one thing that we haven't come to grips with at the tight end position is how great historically the last like 10 years have been in terms of like Jason Witten, Antonio Gates, and Tony Gonzalez took up 20% of the top 12 seasons between 2008 and 2017. Gonzalez and Gates weren't even factors for a couple of those years. Now we're without Gronk. Jimmy Graham's on the downside of his career. So there is sort of, I mean, you look at last year, no one would think that Austin Hooper had a great year and he finished as tight end 6, right? There are ways now at the tight end position to sort of fall, rear end backwards into a top 8 finish just because you played 16 games,
right?
That were never possible before. And so guys like Jordan Reed, guys like Delaney Walker, guys like Greg Olson, it's not sexy, but they can absolutely get up into the top 8 at the position. And it's not that hard. If you play 16 games and you draw 100 targets, you're probably going to finish as a top 12 tight end, especially in this down sort of atmosphere. So that's really something that I do. So either get inside the line with the good young guys, established guys, or take the veterans later combined with the high pedigree guys. And Jared Cook's my other favorite outside the top, outside the line of top 8, 10 guys this year.
Yeah, I'm a big Jared Cook guy. We had talked to Tyler Gee and we were talking Jared Cook, I think 2 weeks ago, but all right. That is all the time we have, but thanks a lot for coming on, Jordan. That was awesome interview. I'm really excited to get into this book. So once again, you can find him at McNamara Dynasty on Twitter. You can buy his book, The Analytics of Dynasty, at analyticsofdynasty.com/shop. And you can find his work over at UTH Dynasty under the helmet. So thanks a lot for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. This has been the episode of F3 Podcast. Thanks a lot for joining us, everybody. You can find us on YouTube at Writer Digest Network. You can find all our written content at dynastyfootballdigest.com and idpguys.org. For just $1 a month, you can get a subscription that has tools, rankings, combined offensive, defensive ADP separate. We have a trade calculator coming, I believe, tomorrow. Probably by the time this comes out, we'll have a trade calculator up. We got start and sit charts coming during the season, and you get access to the Slack channel where basically all of our writers will answer any questions you guys have. So thanks a lot, Jordan, and
thank you,
Joey.
Jordan.
Good to see you, Joey.
Oh, always, Sean.